All right, good day, hi, and welcome. Okay, so my day's kind of a little bit shot. Turn up my. Did I leave the door open? Hang on. Oh, yeah, no, I did close the door. I did close the door. Do that. All right, here we go. Exhibit A. Okay, World War III update. Day 8. Yeah. Is it day 8? Yeah, day 8. So I'm reporting on one day back from the previous day, just of all the stuff. Okay. The fake news out there and the AI, all these AI things. Yeah, this happened, and like there's a lot of disinformation out there. There's no doubt about that. But there is stuff you can verify, and then it's just subjective of do you believe it happened this way or that way. So there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of people that are saying no, those F-15s were shot down by Iranian. The story keeps changing, right? I don't know. I think it was probably the Kuwaiti pilot that shot him down. Makes sense, you know what I mean? But who knows? The fourth airplane, I'm sure that was the Iranians for sure. But that's not the big news of the day. The big news of the day is radar station number 3. Look, 3 THAAD terminal high altitude defense systems have now been destroyed in the world. You say, so what? Well, these are the most complicated and sophisticated air defense systems on the planet. And you'd say, so what? Just get some more. Well, the problem is there's only 10 of them on the planet. And now there's only 7 that are working, right? So when you think about that, when I told you guys years ago that when the United States goes to war with the Iranians, that they will be the most advanced country you've ever fought up to that point. I'm not saying there are not countries that have more advanced systems, but it also comes to something else I said. When you look at the military equipment, okay, like American hegemony, military hegemony is no longer a thing. People can fight back, and they don't even need to have equal equipment to do it. It's more about the strategy. The Iranians have took a brilliant strategy of low tech works no matter what. It's not foolproof, but it sure the fuck is working. I mean, they're hitting things. Like people are now talking about like, do the Iranians actually have the rockets to reach to London? And it's like, yeah, they do. They might not have the rockets set up. They do have rockets that can reach that range. It's just, do they have them set up for like they have it for their space program that can reach. They can't reach the United States yet, I don't think, but maybe they can. Who knows? It's just really a matter of adding rocket boosters. Really, like okay, well, we'll just add 2 more booster stages, and that'll get us to where we want to hit the planet. Right? We don't really know what they have. We really don't know, but we are finding out. Like, and again, people something I've been telling you, like just because the rocket barrages look a little different, okay, like it takes time to find new targets, right? And of course the crime against humanity targets are being hit now, and not just by the Iranians. The Americans and the Israelis are now starting to hit desalination plants, right? Which means the Iranians have a water shortage crisis. Why? It's the fucking desert, right? But they're not solely dependent on desalination for their drinking water. Many Gulf states are. Israel is. So when you see all these Jews out there crying and crimes against humanity, the Iranians, those evil Iranians, hit our desalination plant. Well, you hit theirs. That is not if you're going to consider that a military target, that is to kill people, right? You're about to see a whole bunch of people. They're not going to live long enough to starve to death. They're going to die of thirst. It's going to be an incredible crisis. People are going to be drinking out of mud puddles throughout the Middle East if they can find one. You know what I mean? Very scary what's about to happen. But let's talk about the THAAD systems. Okay, so this is the 3rd radar station, like high target radar station that has been taken out. So a couple Patriot missile systems have been taken out. The THAAD, like 3 THAAD systems, which basically right now that means that main radar station that was $1.2 billion. That radar station is never going to get built again. That's done. Like you're not going to okay, they hit us now and go back out and fix it. You can't hit it. You can't fix it because they're going to rocket you as soon as there's anybody going there to fix it. They will kill the engineers, right? You lose the engineers, you're not going to be able to rebuild. Like who's going to go on an American base now to rebuild anything, right? That's down and out for the rest of the war. And that had a 5,000 kilometer or 3,500 mile radius that it could cover. So you now no longer can see ICBMs coming towards Israel from, say, like Russia. I doubt Russia would ever fire an ICBM at the Israelis, but they could. I don't think it's likely yet, but they could. Or you won't see it coming from China. You won't be able to see missiles coming from the Middle East to the United States. You won't be able to detect them. The warships now have less detection time. It's just by the time you detect it, you know what I mean? Like they're going to be a lot closer. So that means those drones are going to be probably, going nap of the earth around these radar stations were, and be able to hit the carrier groups whenever they choose. Like again, it's not if they can do the Iranians have the technology to sink the carrier groups. They clearly do. It's just they haven't chose to do it yet. I think that they're going to wait. I think there's going to be carrier groups sunk by the end of the month. The Americans are desperate right now on targets to hit in Iran because you have to understand, like the strategy that they've deployed is almost completely unbeatable. There's not enough American bombs to find all the launchers. You know what I mean? There's just not enough. Because this idea that they only have a handful of trucks left, it's like you do realize they've got like shipping container, like Canadian Prepper was talking about. They got shipping containers sitting all over the place, and they're not shipping containers. They're basically, it looks like a friggin' delivery truck, and there's like the top opens up and out comes the rockets and boom. It's asymmetrical warfare. So unless you start bombing every pickup truck or every semi truck or delivery truck in Iran, which means you're going to kill a lot of civilians, you're never going to win. You're never going to win. Now they are bombing the population big time. Like they don't have the B-52s over Tehran yet. But I mean, they're killing a lot of civilians. Like the grave sites of the little girls that they've killed, from the school. And again, God knows how many other people they've killed. Like they're just basically desperation bombing the Iranians right now. They're not really hitting anything of any substance. Why? Because everything they have is in caves. It's in mountain ridges. It's you can't find it all. Like again, the satellite. Everybody thinks these satellites are every inch of the earth is like detected at all at once. It's only good once you point it in the right direction. Doesn't matter how many satellites you have. Like your satellite goes over, it could be like 3 weeks before you actually, can actually find where the targets are. Like it's not quick. You see it in Ukraine. Like it takes them that's why it's like there's a big battle, and then all of a sudden everything just kind of goes to a crawl. They're looking for each other, right? This is what's happening. Like you take out those smaller drones that the Americans have and the Israelis have. Now you got to send in either satellite, and the satellites. Well, if they know what time the satellite's coming at, and again, if it's just sitting there in plain view, sitting under a tent, like a merchant tent or something, but you can't see it. You might detect some stuff if you really concentrate on it, but you're not going to see it overall. So the amount of stuff, like you got to wonder how many rockets, for every rocket truck that gets blown up by the Israelis or the Americans, you got to wonder how many they flew over and just didn't even know they were there. And like again, how many cargo ships are going to be used to sink the carrier group? When they do joint. What I mean? Like they're not going to fight you warship to warship. They're going to use a tanker or a cargo ship as as the warship. You know what I mean? But now, like the entire Middle East has no longer got the radar coverage and defenses. So now the warning time for the rockets coming in is even shorter, meaning less time to respond, track, and target, right? Um, and it's methodical. They take out the radar, they take out the tracking system and the targeting system, and then they take out the launcher. Why? Because the launcher is the least important of the three, but without you need the triad for it to work. And where it gets crazy is that you have all these people still underestimating the capabilities of what the Ukrainians can do. Now, that said, are they taking hits? Yes, they're taking massive hits, right? But who is losing more? To me, it's the world, the Iranians. They're not just targeting military; they're targeting the world economy. They are going to destroy everything. Right now, the reason why, like again, the fuel prices in Canada, why are they going up? Well, because we're part of OPEC. That's why it's going up. This could destroy OPEC. You destroy OPEC, you destroy the Gulf states. The only thing that the Iranians or the Israelis and the Americans have is to stop the Iranians is if they can convince the proxy groups. Some have agreed, some have not, to fight the Iranians, but that's a dumb idea. Why? Do you think a bunch of Kurdish militias are going to be able to take out the 94 million man country or man and women, whatever? But they got a 1 million man army, ready for this. They've already calculated that in that they're, because that's how they took out Syria. But see, with Syria, it was different because you could fly and do airdrops to the ISIS guys. That's what they did. It was caught on, like all these, Globemaster 17s airdropping weapons to the ISIS guys and the Al Qaeda guys, time after time caught on. We made a bad airdrop. These guys, they could do airdrops in the Arctic with, what I mean? Like these guys don't miss. Like you drop exactly where you were told to drop, right? So this idea, we got the wrong drop zone. The odds of that happening is like almost impossible. They have to tell you that. Why? Because the guys flying the airplanes, they probably even think that they're dropped. Oh no, well we screwed up. Oh, it was really here. That's what they tell them because it's like, oh, you mean we're actually dropping weapons to Al Qaeda and ISIS? I mean, sure, I'm pretty sure some of them have figured it out. It's like, yeah, every time we do an airdrop, it's always to the bad guys. Wait a minute, that makes us the bad guys. Fuck, you know what I mean? But they can't do that for Kurdish groups to take out Iran. You're not going to be able to airdrop stuff easily. Trust me, the Iranians will fire at a tanker or a heavy lift aircraft, there's no doubt. Look, they could shoot down the F-35s. They could shoot down the F-15s. They have shot down at least 4 of them to date. They've been shooting down drones left, right, and center. It seems like they're just reserving rather than, like they're not bothering to stop the cruise missiles or the ATACMS or whatever that's being fired in, which some ATACMS have been reported being fired from, I think, UAE or Saudi Arabia. But even at that, like, it's the effects are just so little on, like the Iranians. Oh, see, they're letting up on their rocket barrages, but that's not a good thing because it's like I said, the early phase 1 is to take out the early warning radars, but to also deplete as much of the Iron Dome, the David Sling, the THAAD system, the Taurus system, the Patriot system, all these air defense systems, right? That's what they're working on right now. So Barrage 1, you fire 30 missiles, at this target. 50 missiles, 200 at that, 100 at that target, okay? Once you succeed, you don't have to fire 30 missiles. There's nothing to stop your missile. We only have to hit 3 targets? Okay, well, it takes a missile per, okay? It takes 5 missiles per, whatever it is. That they're at that point now where this is why people think that, they're running out of missiles. They're not. In fact, it's worse that they're firing less because it means they can. It'll take them longer to go through the reserves. They're at the point where if they only fired 100 missiles a month, because they manufacture 100 missiles a month, if they only fired that per month, that would still keep them ahead of the war. But they're not doing that. They're going, again, they're hitting economic targets. They're hitting airports. They're destroying runways. People are trying to get out, like again, the Ben Gurion airport. You can't get out of there now because it's destroyed. You know what I mean? Uh, the Americans are hitting desalination plants. And that's basically their fresh water. So yes, the Iranians are going to counter that. There's no doubt. But when they take out the desalination plants in Israel and Saudi Arabia and UAE and stuff like that, those countries can't sustain themselves. The other problem is almost all the Gulf nations, 90% of their food is shipped in. There's a delay on that. They're going to run out of food. So within the next 3 weeks, pretty much the entire Middle East is going to be in a starvation. And again, most people are not going to live long enough to starve to death because 3 days without water, you're in that kind of heat, most people are going to die, even healthy people, right? So if you're not out of guys, I'd start walking now. Backpacks of water, start walking now. People are stocking up because they know, they're trapped, right? The migrant crisis that's about to take place in Europe is going to be biblical. It's going to make 2015 work. Again. And the thing is that's going to have a lot. If you're going to push a civil war, there you go. People are not going to tolerate it. I don't think a second time around. There's no more. There's no more George Soros funded stuff like that. That's going to be fly. People are just not going to tolerate it. It's like this was a forced migrant crisis because of Israel, because of the United. Like everybody say, when you have Normie Norman out there saying this is Israel's war, when they realize that every war that's been since World War II, and probably even including World War II, were fought on behalf of the Jews. It's really gonna again. That's they can't stop it now. That's what's everybody's saying. And are they right? Yeah, you can call them anti-Semite, but are they wrong? I don't think so. You know what I mean? And again, it's going to have consequences. Not calling for it, but you're already seeing it here. People are shooting at mosques or not mosques, but what's called Jewish synagogues, right? In Toronto, there's a couple of them been attacked, right? It's like, oh, we're the victims. Well, no, it's the 110th explanation of the Jews. You pissed off every person around the world. And the dumbest thing that the Jews have done, again, I know it's not all of them, and I hate bashing on them because I know there's not a Jew under every rock trying to get you, but the ones in power have really, the one bad apple theory wrecks the whole damn bunch, right? They've gotten themselves killed. They just don't know it yet. Look, and I'm not calling for it, but what did you think was going to happen? And again, some of them want this to happen because of their, biblical beliefs. We have to be persecuted by everybody, so we can get the Messiah to come back, the Mashiach or whatever. Again, I know it's insane, and a lot of people are seeing the insanity that it is, right? People are especially the evangelicals again. Again, guys, if you didn't believe me, Paula White, that was her name. I was trying to think. She is right there by Trump all the time. Trump is a Zionist evangelical doomer, right? Evangelicals are not Christians. They are Zionists. Paula White is the type of people that he's surrounded by. These are not good people. These are fucking death cults. I'm not against Christians. I'm not against Catholics. I'm not even really against Muslims or Jews. I'm against the radical sections of them. And the problem is with the Jews, about 80% of them are all, for all these Greater Israel Project stuff, right? And, probably you could say the same about the Muslims. That's why they shouldn't be in our countries. When you have Muslims and Jews now fighting here, take that shit back to the Middle East. We don't want it. Now, in return, we'll stay out of the Middle East. We don't belong there. We shouldn't be there. Whatever. Anyway. But yeah, so it really, 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 really bad what's happening. And the thing is that, look, you're going to see it domestically. There's now protests all over the world against Israel, against the United States, against the aggression. NATO's not going to invoke Article 5 because this doesn't fit the bill of Article 5. This is a war of choice. It's not, you weren't invaded. Israel's sitting there, the Israeli and the Zionists are sitting there going, Iranian aggression. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you kicked the hornet's nest, and like again, as they say, they lash out in pain as they strike you, right? Well, if you go and do preemptive strikes on people, you can't bitch when they, again, you go punch a hornet's nest and all the hornets come out and sting you. You say that's an overreaction. I only punched you once. That's not how they look at it. You reap what you sow. If you want to go fight with mess with the bull, you're going to get the horns. And look, the Iranians are winning the war. They're taking losses. They're taking hits, but they're going to be rebuilding much faster than the Gulf states. So it's really the question is to the Gulf states is like, okay, well, all these radar, state-of-the-art, best in the world radar systems, and they are that, are not enough to stop the Iranian rockets. The low-tech, $500,000 rockets have destroyed multi-billion-dollar, like you're talking over $2 billion worth of just radar systems destroyed. Never mind the billions of dollars of munitions fired. Like they've probably bombed. They said they bombed more, dropped more bombs now than what was dropped on Dresden. Firepower wise, I believe it. And they're still shooting back. Again, oh, the Iranians are losing. Oh, we hit this on them. We hit that on them. Oh, we sunk a couple of this and a couple of that, but they're still shooting back. So the saving grace is, can we get every other tribal group in the area to go fight on our behalf? Again, some might, but I don't think it's going to make a difference. You could put 1 million rebel groups up against the Iranians. They're ready for it. You know what I mean? They're on their home turf. What are these guys going to swim across the freaking? You know what I mean? Like they're going to walk in from the neighboring country to go and fight the Iranians are waiting for them. They're waiting for the Americans. Like the Iranians are prepared to fight the Americans toe to toe. Look, the 85th Airborne or whatever, 84th, 85th Airborne, they got called off their drill to get ready to go and fight in the Middle East. How many of these guys are going to defect? You know what I mean? These guys, and again, this could be this idea that they don't have enough air defense to fend off. No, they're saving it for the ground invasion. They're saving the artillery for the ground invasion. The rockets are winning the war just fine. They don't need to stop all the bombs coming in. They just have to make it so costly. When you start losing B-52s, you're going to lose 8 to 12 men per B-52. When you start, the Iranians, when they want to do the demoralization, they're going to shoot down a B-2, right? And that'll be like, okay, well, there's your stealthiest aircraft. It's stealthier than the F-35s. It's stealthier than anything the Americans have ever built, with maybe the exception of the F-117. But even at that, the B-2 might actually be stealthier. It's hard to say. We don't really know. No one's really going to be forthcoming on that. If they start shooting down U-2 bombers, which there's reports that some U-2 bombers have been flown in the area, that's going to show another capability. But I think when you start losing F-35s, F-22s, and B-2s, and B-52s, that's going to be like very demoralizing to see that. But it's when they sink the carrier groups, they're going to do it. It's just what they do it. Look, we're 9 days into this war at the making of this video, and I'm covering day 8, but we're 9 days into this war, right? The Israelis have lost way more than they did in the 12-day war. Why? Because the Iranians back then, the Iranians went strike 1, strike 2, strike 3. Trump killed Soleimani, right? The Iranians responded, a month later, a week later, said, yeah, okay, here's our measured response. We're going to hit you by Friday. We'll call the Iraqis, let them know. The Iraqi Prime Minister is out there. He's saying, no, you're not going to fight. The Americans are not going to fight the war. Like the Iraqi president, again, everybody's flip-flopping. Because it's like, do we take on the Iranians or do we let the Iranians conquer the region? You might as well call the Middle East the Kingdom of Iran at this point, because they're going to win everything, including Israel. So the Iraqis are like, no, we're not gonna allow the Americans to attack Iran from our area because they're going to take us out, right? Like Iraq has already been pounded the shit out of enough, right? I know the Pakistanis and Afghanis are going at it too. Taliban versus Pakistan or whatever. They'll do their thing, right? Because it's the Middle East, they fight, right? But the Iraq has had enough of the war stuff. It's like, no, we're not going to back the Americans. The Americans are not going to be able to bully their way through and just say, well, we're landing our aircraft here anyway. What are you going to do about it? No, look, militia groups are like right now. There's a big problem to get people out of embassies, right? You're about to see like a Libya 2.0, only about instead of one embassy being overrun, you're about to see probably about 10 or 20 or whatever embassies in the area overrun by jihadi groups, killing all those Americans. That's going to be a disaster. Oh, rally around the flag. We got to go avenge these people. It's like, no, we started a war with people that. And again, I think there's going to be more groups that are going to side. I know they're trying to trigger a Sunni Shia war, which is easy to do because it's been going on for centuries, right? But I think the problem that the miscalculation is that, the Sunnis are not going to fight on behalf of the Americans in Israel. You know what I mean? And most of them can tell that they're not going to, it's like, okay, no, it's not our time to strike because the Iranians, they're ready to kill everybody. The Iranians are ready to kill everybody. They don't care. This is their existential crisis. They are fighting for their independence right now. You might not like them, but just because you want these people to die doesn't mean they're going to agree with you, right? And this is the major miscalculation. The U.S. military is not powerful enough to take out Iran. Yes, it's got fancy, expensive equipment, and their equipment is better in a lot of ways. And if you compare an older F-15 to an older MiG-29, the F-15 might be a little bit better, right? But that's not the strategy they're using. Yeah, sure, the Patriot missile systems are probably more advanced than any rocket that's being fired out of Iran. But that's not, these fast, low-tech rockets, or medium-tech, we'll call it medium-tech, rockets are unstoppable. There's like a 1 in 3 chance of hitting the damn thing. You know what I mean? This is the Patriot, this is the best air defense system in the world, and has about maybe 2 out of 3 missiles will hit, right? And again, it just all the stuff that just keeps getting by, and you see it on video. Wham! In comes a rocket. It's so fast. Mach 6, Mach 10, Mach 13. It's fucking crazy. You can't stop that. There is no air defense system in the world that can stop that, which should make you think twice about starting a nuclear war, because if you can't stop, low yield rockets, and these are low yield rockets, and again, you look at the power that they wield. I'm not saying they're not destructive, they're extremely destructive, but those are low yield. You start acting in like the thermobaric stuff, the Iranians aren't using that right now. Wait, if they do have thermobaric capabilities like the Russians, holy shitballs. They'll vaporize city blocks at a time. These are unstoppable missiles. It's like when they fire the Orezhniks in the Ukraine. You watch these things, it's just a blur. It's so fast. You can't even blink that fast. It's that fast. It's like, yeah, you're not going to stop it, right? The Americans do not have the tech to stop it. The Navy's not strong enough or advanced enough to stop these rockets. The air defense systems are not advanced enough to stop these rockets. They can stop some, but they can't stop them all. So the Gulf states, again, are they going to let themselves get, once those desalination plants get hit, never mind your economy, you are about to die you've lost your water supply. You can't rebuild those, you'll die of thirst trying to rebuild them. We are talking a humanitarian crisis on biblical proportions of the Middle East. So, yeah, this is and who's going to get blamed? Is it going to be the Iranians? Yeah, sure. The people in the Middle East, yeah, they all hate each other. They've always had. Yeah, they're going to, have a death revenge thing against the Iranians for the rest of their lives. I get that, but that was already the case anyway. And the Gulf states went along with the Americans, and that's what the Iranians said. If you go along with it, you're in on it. You're in on it. You're in on it. You're a target. So the question is how much of the economy are they going to allow to get destroyed? How much of the what's it going to take for the Gulf states to tell the Americans, to pound sand? In the desert. It'd be easy to do. You're in the desert, right? Yeah, you got to go pound sand. You can't stay here. You can't protect us anyway. And we're not willing to sacrifice our population through starvation and no water. You know what I mean? Like, like this is what, like, it's the death of the Saudi royals if it gets to that point. Never mind the nuclear power plants and stuff like that. People can live without hydro, but they can't live without food or water. Sure, the air conditioning, yeah, it's nice, whatever, but you can survive. Again, these places are like the surface of Mars. Like they're some of the most unhospitable places to live in the world, and all those people, that's like almost a billion people, all in, like like at least 500,000,000 people throughout the Middle East. If they start heading to Europe, you know what I mean, in Canada here and all that, like, uh, like no more refugees, no more, like, there's going to be so much war, and again, bringing in all these people that are, they're already fighting here. They should be deported back to the countries of origin. Everybody should tell Israel to go fuck itself because, like, the Israelis are the instigators here. So, yeah, but it was the United States that dragged Israel into the war. No, they didn't. Israel controls the United States. They've got 2/3 of their Congress are either dual citizenship Israelis or Zionist evangelicals, right? So it's like no, like no one's going to believe that. Like you can gaslight all you want, no one's going to believe it. We know who the bad guys are. The Americans are the bad guys. The Israelis are the bad guys. The Iranians, again, no fan of their regime, but they didn't start it. You did. You know what I mean? Like you threw the first punch. You threw the first punch. Yeah. And the Iranians, like I say, they're at a point now that the rockets, okay, they're not necessarily slowing down. It's just they're retargeting, right? It's on both sides. Like, look, aircrafts are now being cycled for maintenance. Uh, this is why you're seeing all the mobilization in the States. They got to, half these airplanes are sitting there waiting for parts. You know what I mean? The capabilities only 8 days in or 9 days in is greatly degraded from what it was 9 days ago. So yes, the airstrikes are going to take part over Iran. It seems like the Iranians want the radar systems gone first, which makes sense because that's, like the satellites, okay, like you can't keep satellites, over a target for long periods of time, right? There's going to be a lag. There's going to be a lag, and they're going to figure out how to, jam the satellites and stuff like that. The Chinese might give them those laser beams that they use. There's these green lasers, right? They literally will just track a satellite and blind it. At that point, like there's nothing you can do. You're completely blind. At that point, when they blind the satellites, the warships will never know what's coming. They won't be able to use passive radars or anything like that. The F-35s won't be able to use passive radar. If they can't use passive radar, they're no different than an F-15. They'll stand out. Like the second you turn your radar on, you're going to be detected, right? And now, the most powerful radars in the area can no longer, like they're done. They're destroyed. The invincible Americans have now been destroyed, right? Again, so that means these bases will not see what's coming at them. And you can see it every night, especially in Israel. Like Israel is getting really fucking hammered. Sure, the Iranians might be taking on more hits, in the domestic areas, but bombing Tehran is not really, like, again, what are you bombing? Sure, maybe you kill the schoolgirls today and it stops a future generation, but it's not going to win you the war, right? And the thing is given it, like, once we hit day 12, right, what we're going to find is that it'll be the same thing as 6 months ago. Look, Trump has already tried 3 attempts at a ceasefire. Failed, right? So the Iranians, they know that the Israelis are going to try to nuke them, right? They know that's the next thing. And then after that, it's the Americans going to nuke them. So the Iranians know that they probably can't stop ICBMs coming in, but they probably can stop the F-35s once they're loaded with nukes. What they might do is, I'm sure they've got eyes on the ground. Look, Hezbollah took down an Israeli helicopter last night. They've now got 1 tank, 1 helicopter. Every time you take 1 instrument of war away from the Israelis, it's that much less they can do because they don't have a lot to begin with. They have 300 fighters, sure, that's a lot, but most of them are old. Um, they're F-15s, F-16s. Those things can't, get around air defense systems that easily, right? You need these drones. You take out the Iranians are clearly taking out drones. Yeah, sure, the Americans have like 20,000 of these Predator drones and Reaper drones and stuff like that, but you're going to run out of those pretty quick too. Um, it still seems to be that most of the air defense system is being held back. It's in reserve. I think they're saving it for once they take out the carrier groups, then you're on bombers. Like at some point, the Americans are not going to be able to load up the bombers or anything from the Middle East. They're going to have to rely on B-52s, B-1 Lancers, and B-2s, right? And because like the only thing the F-18s, the F-16s, and the F-15s will be an escort aircraft. There's no doubt about that. But they're going to be on drop tanks, meaning they're going to have less weaponry. And the F-35 is the same thing. Once they're on drop tanks, then they're either going to have to like be stuck to a tanker, and you only have 100 tankers, right? And 65 of the American 100 tankers, or 99 of them, whatever they have, 64 or 65 of them are in the region. If the Iranians start knocking down tankers, and they can, the ranges at which you won't have a fighter escort for your B-52s, your B-2s, and your B-1 Lancers. And at that point, if you can't get fighters over the region, and you're going to rely solely on long-range bombing, maybe you can get some of those old prowlers or whatever to help you out with radar jamming and stuff like that. Maybe even some old intruders if you have to go back that far, but I don't think the intruders would be advanced enough to jam the modern air defense systems. But what will happen is you'll be shot down by long-range air defense long before you can get within firing range, and that's when you're going to see the Iranian MiG-29s, the F-4 Phantoms, particularly the F-4 Phantoms, maybe even the F-14s, because they're going to have the range to make it up to the firing range drop-off points of the B-52s and whatever. And once you start running low on Tomahawk missiles, then you're on to gravity bombs or JDAMs or glider bombs. Then your bombers are going to have to get in even closer. And at that point, the Iranians will be shooting you down left, right, and center. There'll be nothing you can do about it. Especially if they do have a handful of Su-35s and Su-30s. I don't think they've got them yet, but they might have a few. And again, the carrier groups, they're going to be completely depleted. Again, once the radar stations are out, at that point, the success rate of basically the warships are going to be almost impossible to detect where the cruise missiles are going to be coming in from. Like cruise missiles are going to be flying over Saudi Arabia, and they're not even going to know. Like, whose is it? I don't know. Is it ours or the Americans? Is it the Iranians? We don't know. And then suddenly out, they're not going to be able to detect this stuff, encircling from you're going to get an encirclement of the U.S. Navy. There's no doubt about it, because we don't know where the other two Iranian Kylo subs are, and there's another maybe about 4 to 6 other smaller subs, but they're long enough range that they could. What I think they're going to do, this is my guess, is they're going to encircle. They're going to use a series of freighters and submarines to track the carrier group. They're going to use that to hone in again the long range cluster rockets. Those are just meant to damage the radars and stuff. They're not going to sink a warship with that. But once they deplete the radar capabilities and fire control systems of the warships to a good enough, then they're going to bring in the hypersonic carrier killers. And, they're going to drone swarm them first, followed up by, actual anti-shipping missiles, and then, hypersonic missiles finish off the job. And you're going to lose probably about 30,000 guys in a day or two. It's going to be astronomical. And if you try to put boots on the ground, look, to do an air, paratrooper invasion in Iran is just that. They want that. They are waiting for that. They are holding back. They're doing what I call the red meat tactic, where, okay, we're just going to hit you with their offense is the rockets, right? They could win the war with just the rockets. But what they're doing is they're holding back the air defenses for specialty targets because they probably don't have as much air defense as they do rockets, right? But they probably have enough of it that say, okay, well, we might not be able to take out the entire United States Air Force, but if we could take out the tankers, we'll take that down. We'll take out the B1s and B2s and the B-52s. Take that out. That greatly depletes. Like A-10s will be shot down by anti-aircraft fire and shoulder-fired missiles, right? Which they probably have tons of that. Apache gunship helicopters are going to get slaughtered. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why they stopped using them after Afghanistan. They were starting to lose too many. But drones, again, the RQ-4s, the RQ-9s, these are the most state-of-the-art drones that the United States has lost in this battle already. And then a whole bunch of Reaper drones and stuff. That degrades the capabilities, but it's these radars. Without these radars, you're basically blind. You only have satellite and warships and fighter jets to detect the rockets. It's not going to be enough. And the question is do you think that the Americans and the Israelis will be able to convince enough proxy groups to attack Iran on their behalf to overthrow Iran? Yeah, sure, some of them want revenge because their countries were hit. I get that, it's the eye for an eye thing. But are they willing to have their countrymen wiped out trying to take down a regime that they can't even get? How are they going to get there? These proxy groups, what are they going to drive their Toyotas all the way to Iran? You know what I mean? They'll be slaughtered, right? Yeah, so the question becomes, can the Americans and the Israelis, convince a Sunni Shia war to happen before the Iranians can convince the Gulf states to tell the Americans to pound sand and get out of there because you can't, you're not going to be defended against our aggression. If you want the aggression to stop, the Americans have to go. And that's their claim. They look, you're dropping the sanctions, you're going to get out of Gaza, you're going to get all out of the Gulf states, you're never going back to these, like the Americans will never have a base in the Middle East again. Maybe on the outskirts, maybe they'll be able to stay in Pakistan, maybe they'll be able to stay in, but any place that has, has said, okay, yeah, you can use our air bases, whatever, even including the British, the British and the French. Yeah, we'll hit your bases if you hit us because you're part of it. Like they're not looking at it as, well, you're just letting the Americans hit us. No, they're looking at it, well, if the Americans are hitting us from your territory, you're as guilty as them. And are they wrong? You know what I mean? So that's what's happening. The desalination plants are very, very, that is probably the worst target that could be, from a humanitarian point of view, to be hit. The Americans have already done that. Like I say, the Americans always bomb food supplies, energy, the hydro, all that. I don't know if they've hit any nuclear power plants in Iran yet. If they do, I'm sure, say goodbye to the nuclear power plants in Israel. At that point, it's lights out in desert heat. I know they're in their winter right now, I guess, but, water shortage, lights out, no food coming in. Like, guys, millions of people are about to die. They don't even know it. You know what I mean? And again, it's like once you, the thing is once you take out the desalination plant, that could take months to repair that, And again, especially if you can't get the supplies, coming in from the ships. And the 90% of the food in most of the Gulf states is coming in from abroad. Like these are, again, this is like trying to supply Mars with life support. You know what I mean? That's what we're up against. And again, most of these people, for them to get through Libya, to get to Europe, I mean, how many people are going to be slaughtered by jihadi groups? Think of all the human traffic, all these, women will be fucking scooped up like crazy, right, into sex slaves. If you're about to see human trafficking hit a new level, this is really, really, really bad. Never mind, the economic hardships we're going to face here. And the thing is it's going to hurt us enough. We won't be able to help. Again, Americans are right now on the left and on the right saying, okay, we're not allowed to have healthcare because that's social, a single payer healthcare system because that's socialism. Don't get me wrong. As a Canadian, I can tell you the single payer healthcare system has phenomenal amounts of problems. But I would never trade it for the free market American system. Sure, you can get treatment right away if you're rich enough. When 40% of your population can't afford healthcare, again, a couple $100 a month, like $400 a month for fucking healthcare, like that's crazy. And not only that, the single payer system in Canada, we pay about $6,500 a year for for care, right? For healthcare. You guys pay $7,500 in the free market. So, you know, and again, the drug plans and like that, you guys are gouging yourselves. Again, it's a bad system. It's one of the worst healthcare systems in the world is the American one. It's like 37th, 38th. We're like at least like in the top 7, you know, with all the problems we have. You know what I mean? And again, don't get, you know, I know people, well, this is wrong. The hospital wait times, you can die waiting for treatment. That is true. But at least you can get treatment. You know, like you get into an accident, you get treated right away. You know what I mean? Where, you know, when you get out of the hospital, you don't have a $250,000 bill to pay. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but why can't you have single payer healthcare or a 2-tier system in the States? Which I'm all for a 2-tier system. Well, I'll tell you why. Because the socialism that you're paying for goes to Israel. They get the healthcare system on the American taxpayer dime. They get billions of dollars a year. They get to go to war and fight Iran till the last American. You know, kind of like how NATO's fighting, Russia to the last Ukrainian, which even there, the history legends, doing his analysis, he said the Russians might be losing like almost 1-to-1 ratio against the Ukrainians, so that means that killing the Russians to the last Ukrainian might actually pay off. You know, it's just you're going to lose a lot of Ukrainians, right? The Russians are still winning, but yes, it's like a 1.3 or 1.7 to 1 kill ratio. That is so close. The Iranians are probably going to have like a 3 or 4, maybe a 10 to 1 kill ratio over the Americans. That is going to be a very sobering thing. Again, Iraq, you had the Gulf nations around you that you could use their air bases. Once you had air superiority over Saddam's air force, it was easy to establish air bases and all the military bases you want, so that you could then, rule Iraq and Afghanistan with impunity, right? You don't have that anymore. Why? Because the Iranians have taken away the number one asset, and that is bases. By not being able to put boots on the ground or have a presence, you can't fight a war that far off your shore easily. Look, even in World War II, the Americans had the station in England first, right? And other places, or else they wouldn't have been able to fight the war. And Japan, fighting Japan, you had to commandeer islands, right? Or else you would have been able to fight the war. You had to go to Hawaii, and then you had to go to Guam. You had to go, get to Japan, right? And then you had to, get presence in the region. You're losing that presence in the region. When you drop these soldiers off on the shores of Iran, how are you going to support them? What, they're going to build a base there? That's going to last like 15 minutes. You're not even going to get the base built. They'll have rockets raining down on you, like artillery raining down on you. You won't be able to supply fast enough. Like like you've already lost the war. You're not like this. Oh, the 87. Where are you going to put the guys? Where are you going to put the guys in the Middle East that they can actually do any effective fighting? What, Pakistan? That's way too far away. Like, you won't be able to do it. Like, what are these guys going to do when they get there? You're not going to put boots on the ground. Well, you're going to put them in Syria now? Look, the Iranians aren't hitting Syria because the Syrians aren't really doing anything against Iran. But the regime in Syria is the Al-Qaeda regime, ISIS regime, that the United States and Israel put in there, and unfortunately the rest of the Western world put in there to overthrow Assad, who was stability in the region. Okay, so all these bases that are in Syria, they're going to be taken out by the Iranians. The Iranians will have no qualms about hitting that. The Syrians didn't hit the American bases in Syria because they didn't want to trigger the Americans coming in. But in hindsight, they would have been better off to do it because they would have won against ISIS because they wouldn't have been able to be resupplied by the Americans. You know what I mean? Like the helicopter drops, that type of thing. So again, Hezbollah right now is, basically hammering the shit out of Israel as well. They shot down a helicopter. I don't know what kind of helicopter, but they shot one down. They destroyed a tank. So we're going to see like the Lebanon-Israel war 2006 style, but this time the Lebanese are probably even better prepared. They probably have, I forget the name of their, it's not the Lebanese Communist Army. There's about 5 different armies there, right? But it's one of their like the Lebanese whatever defense force. Those guys, they got anti-tank weapons coming out the yin yang. They've got more anti-tank weapons than the Israelis have of Merkava tanks. And if you're taking out Merkava 4s and Merkava 5s, there's no the Israelis don't have military dominance like they had, say, in the 70s and 80s, right? They don't have that anymore. Because every time you lose something, you're less capable and you can't defend yourself now, right? Like the Lebanese are not going to be able to run jihadis into Israel like you did on October 7th. You have to understand the Israelis let that happen. They were warned by Egypt. They were warned by Jordan. They were warned by everybody. Yeah, they're gonna attack you. They let it happen. They wanted it to happen. Why? Because it gave them, if they attack us and we sacrifice a few citizens, we'll get a rally around the flag, and then we'll be able to carpet bomb Gaza, right? So they're going to carpet bomb Lebanon as well. There's no doubt that, the West Bank and all that, right? But the thing is, they're not going to be able to do to Lebanon what they did to Gaza, because you're not going to be able to basically replenish Israel with enough bombs. Like the Israelis are not going to be resupplied within about the next 2-3 weeks, because the Iranians are not going to stop the war they're going to do it on their terms and only their terms. And right now, the Iranians keep refusing peace. Again, Trump is trying to stop the war with the Iranians 3 times. Why would they do that? So what, you could build up again and attack us again? No, it's like, we're going to destroy your entire military complex in the area, and they're clearly going to do it. The Israelis will not be able to stop this. So their 300 aircraft, most of them are going to probably be destroyed on the ground. Once they have no fighter jets, they can't stop these cluster munitions coming in. They're going to burn Israel to the ground. No doubt about that. And again, these Israelis living in there was some footage from an Israeli underground bunker. Some guy let out a severe fart and fucking nearly killed everybody in the bunker. Yeah, laugh, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, those people that in the bunkers, they're going to run on a generator for a few weeks. But once the water runs out, again, like the Israelis killed themselves. I told you that. There's going to be a day where no communications come out of Israel. It's going to be eerie. No one's going to know what's going to happen. They're going to fly some drones over. It's just going to be smoldering rubble everywhere. You're going to have about 7 to 9 million people dead. Either they're going to die of dehydration, which is most likely now, if the Iranians hit the desalination plants, or they're going to die, just being overrun by rebel groups and rocket barrages and what have you. There's no saving Israel or the Jews now. That they're done. The 110th expellation of Jews is gone global. I warned it. They're their own worst enemy. I get it. It's not all of them. Not every one of them will be wiped out. But out of the 40 million Jews globally, I don't know where they're going to hide. You're already going to have street battles in the States. You're already seeing synagogues being shot at here in Canada. That's not, racist white people doing that. That is Muslims doing that, right? Guaranteed. Why? Because it's the holy war. Trump has basically signaled to the entire Islamic world that we're now in the holy war crusade, right? So if you thought all these years that I've been warning, well, particularly since 2015 when I said the 10th crusade has started, and it would look different, now you know that, okay, well, this is the 10th crusade. This is a holy war that the American administration is fighting on behalf of the evangelicals and the Israelis, right? Those are your evildoers. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a whole Muslim faction that wants this too. They all want the Battle of Armageddon. So maybe if we're lucky, they all kill each other, and the rest of us, normal people, can live in peace. But unfortunately, everybody gets caught in the crossfire. So this is the situation that's about to, like, again, the water is the number one weapon. It's always been. Water and food will be the number one weapons of the Middle East. You could, you know, hammer the, like, everybody's going to, look, the Yemenis have been bombed out under the Obama administration. Remember, that was fine for the Democrats. Where were all the Democrats that are, trashing Trump for this now? You know what I mean? You should have been, we need to go back, every administration of, right back to the Bush, whoever's left alive, they all need to be charged against crimes against humanity for illegal wars and hung high. We need to stop the wars. We need to stop U.S. intervention and all that, American exceptionalism. Keep it in your own country. Never mind taking out. And you need to tell Israel to go fuck its hat. No, we're not going to give you any more money. We're not going to fight any more wars for you. Fuck you guys. You guys are fucking up the world. Call me an anti-Semite, bigot, whatever. That's fine. But am I not right? Like these people have us on the edge of thermonuclear war, like you wouldn't believe. And they're probably going to be the first ones using the Samson option to strike the Iranians, because you can't stop the Iranians now until you stop. That's very simple. You stop shooting, we'll stop shooting, right? But they won't do a peace fire. They're not coming to the table. You're never going to get peace negotiations between Iran and the United States again. The United States has betrayed the trust of just about every country it's done business with in the past year, right? So the Americans are not going to be trusted for the next 30 to 50 years on just that. The Iranians will never trust you. So as soon as they see military buildup of American forces in the Middle East, they're going to hit it right away. They're going to start using U.S.-Israeli doctrine of preemptive strikes. Oh, they're building up, bang, we're going to hit it. And again, you might as well call the Middle East right now the Iranian Empire. They're going to control every country there. Why? They're the most powerful. I've told you they're the most powerful. Everybody's been telling you they're the most power. Again, these are the most advanced people the Americans have ever fought. They actually have a strategy and a plan. It's not perfect, but you can't measure the airstrikes equally on one country and say that's dominant when that country is still firing back at 14, 15 other countries and have hit, 30 air bases now? Taking out billions and billions and billions of dollars of assets and future economic, again, tankers, aircrafts, airliners, radar stations, military stuff, commercial commerce, maritime traffic, like sinking freighters. There's no comparison who's doing more damage. There's no comparison. No comparison. And the Iranians have factored in you bombing their civilians as a thing. You know what I mean? The civilians, trust me, if you're going to ask the average Iranian who they hate more right now, their government or the Americans and the Israelis, I'm pretty sure 90% of them are going to say, maybe even more than 90%. Look, I understand there's Iranians out there that want to overthrow the regime. And a lot of times when you see these real pro-Iranians that, a lot of times they're dual citizenship Israelis, just so you know. So be careful on that one. When you have, I'm an Iranian and I'm against everything in Iran and blah, blah, blah. You're like, okay, yeah, they're telling you all the horror stories, which I'm not saying they're lying. But then it's like, oh yeah, I'm dual citizen Israeli. There's a lot of propaganda out there, guys. I'm telling you. I'm not saying none of the Iranian protesters are legitimate. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the majority of Iranians support the regime. The majority of Israelis and Jews support what Israel is doing. The majority of Americans do not support what is going on, but the 70 million evangelicals, they're not Christians. Do not call them Christians. They are Zionists. They're death cults. That's all they are. They support this. Overwhelming majority. Right? So, again, if you have any doubt when I told you that Trump was a Zionist evangelical doomer from the second year of his first term, now you can see, go look at the Paula White thing. Now you'll hear chanting in tongues, right? She sounds satanic, right? She's chanting in tongues right there in the White House, right beside Trump. Again, Trump, sure, he doesn't go to church, but it doesn't mean he's not a radical Zionist evangelical doomer. He is. He's doing it more on behalf of Israel, right? His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is a rabid Zionist end times prophecy guy. So is his daughter Ivanka. Look, Byron Trump, everybody's saying, like, draft Byron Trump, put him on the front line. He'll never have to fight. None of the Trump kids will ever have to fight. But that said, go back to 2009, the more this goes on, look, we're about to see Libya 2.0. And you're about to see a whole bunch, if it's not even already taking place. I'm not calling for it, but look, people are rushing the embassies. They're encircling the motels with American troops in it. These motels, the ones that are still left standing, again, how many Americans have died already? We don't know. It could be in the hundreds. It could be in the thousands. Trump is not going to tell you the truth. Maybe in 2 years you'll get, oh, well, when we revised it, it looks like, yeah, that many people did die. They needed to go on for a while before they can tell you the truth. We're not going to get the numbers. They probably don't even know the numbers. It's hard to say. Thousands of civilians have probably been killed already, probably in the tens of thousands. We don't know. It's hard to say. The fog of war, the lying, the fact that it doesn't matter how many American troops die, because if you think the American government cares about you, it should be pretty obvious now that they don't. This is why most people are not signing up for the military. This is why they want foreigners in our military, because it's like, well, we can't get the people are not, they're coming, they're not stupid enough to sign up for, to fight as a mercenary army for Israel, right? And everybody knows it. So again, this is not going to work out well. The Israelis have fucked themselves so bad. The Iranians are not going to let this go. You killed their Ayatollah. Right? I'm sure Netanyahu's somewhere off out of the country, safe. Don't worry about him. He'll be fine. If he has kids, I'm sure they're fine too. Again, these world elites, they make these messes for everybody, and they themselves never have to fight, right? But we have to pay the cost. Why should we have to pay the cost for their fucking evil? Where is the brave law enforcement military to arrest these guys for crimes against humanity? It's time to fucking step up and go above your fucking paycheck, because they're going to get you and your family killed, trying to support it. Like, when do you say when? When do you do the right thing? Come on, let's go. Do the right things. Get the Epstein people. This is not all just for the Epstein thing. It's for the whole bag of it. This whole globalist bag of progressivism, nuttery, the Zionist nuttery. Like, it's for the whole bag. It's for the banking system. It's for everything. And Iran knows this. They don't have to have numbers on their side to win. They don't. All they have to do is endure. And when they endure this and they come out the other side, that regime will be unbeatable. Unbeatable. They won't take over the world, but they will be unbeatable. And more people across the Middle East, citizenry-wise, even in the Gulf states, like, look, if the desalination plants get hit, okay, all these royal families all across the Middle East, yeah, they're dead. Why? Not because they're going to starve to death, because the people are going to kill them. Say, you did this to us. You supported the bad guys. When the rockets started coming in, most of the people were like, whoa. Like, you're starting a war against a country that can actually fucking hit back. And that's what the United States is not used to. Look, if you want a good parallel of why the Russians did better in World War II than the Germans killed more Russians than vice versa. The Germans were a superior military to the Russians. Almost everything they had was better. Their tanks, their aircraft, everything. But I'll give you an example what the Stalinist method was at the time. Quantity was equality, right? Meaning overwhelm the fuckers with odds. If they've got 5 guys, throw 30 at them. Even if you lose 25 guys, you still win. You take them out. The Germans countered with the Blitzkrieg, which was, okay, same kind of concept. Overrun them, overwhelm them, but have a strategy when you do it. Don't just fucking be cannon fodder, right? Hit them from multiple angles all at once. Rush the machine gun's nest, so to speak. It's suicidal, but it works. Then the Germans had these superior Tiger tanks and Tiger II tanks and King Tiger tank, same thing. But the Germans had these cheap T-34s. that they made in rapid numbers. So the Americans had what was called the Tommy burners, these complete pieces of junk called the Sherman tank. Yes, they were complete pieces of junk. They couldn't take a hit. They were gasoline powered with an aircraft radial engine. They caught fire so easy they called them Tommy burners. Thing is basically the Germans were destroying American tanks 4-1, but the problem is there was 10-1. So the Shermans, they were at point blank range when they finally took out a Tiger tank, but there was only 1,300 Tiger tanks and there was 9,000 or 10,000 Shermans, right? There was, I forget how, 80,000 or whatever it was, T-34s. They lost like 5-10-1, but it didn't matter. It was just fucking onslaughts, right? There was two things that saved the T-34. Number one, it had slanted armor, so rounds half the time would ricochet off, and then it was just numbers. Numbers. That's how they won. That's how the Soviets won, was with numbers. Well, the Iranians are doing the same thing with rockets. Why have a rocket that's fly all the way to the target, bomb the target, come back and have to do maintenance? Just make a one-way trip for one item. You don't have to have an aircraft carrier. You don't have to have a tanker. You don't have to maintain the aircraft. You just fire the fucking rocket. That's good enough. And just add booster stages for range and extra weight for payload. Again, low tech works no matter what. It's a superior strategy. The World War II American strategy doesn't work anymore. That model doesn't work anymore. And when you see the aircraft carriers going down, and they will, it's going to be a very sad day for a lot of people. Look, nobody wants to see all this death and destruction. It's only the Zionists and the Israelis, Jews that want this. It's nobody else. The Iranians don't want this war, but they're not going to back down. They've never backed down. They're the Persians. They've been a Persian empire for 2,700 years? I think they're going to be around another 2,700 years. There's 91 million people there. You're not going to... Look, if you couldn't take out the Yemenis, okay, which Obama tried on behalf of Saudi Arabia by basically bombing the shitballs out of them. Democrats didn't say anything when Obama was doing, but it's bad when Trump does it. No, it's bad when they all do it, right? At least on the right side, they're calling it out predominantly. Yes, there's, like, the only MAGA people left are Zionists. That's it. They're either evangelical Zionists or, there's the odd retarded libertarian that, America, fuck yeah, I get, there's those guys too. But most conservatives are against it. Most MAGA people voted against this happening. Look, the MAGA people this is what they wanted. End the illegal migrants, send them home. Okay? Maybe you like that, maybe you don't, but that's what they want. They voted for that. They voted for no more wars. Okay? They voted for make America great again, bring back manufacturing, not, fucking just willy-nilly trade wars with everybody and just blanket sanctions or what do you call it? Not sanctions, but tariffs that just boomerang effect as a tax. Trump was trying to use that as a tax to pay down the deficit. It didn't work because they're burning up the money. Anything that Doge saved has been burnt up last year with the attack on Iran. That was burnt up in a week, all that savings. So, we're making $190 billion off the tariffs. You've already burnt it up in a couple of wars, right? And, foreign aid to everybody. The MAGA people wanted to end foreign aid to everybody, particularly Israel. They didn't ask to take out Maduro. They don't care about Maduro. And again, you have to understand, that oil that was stolen from the Venezuelans, right? That oil isn't flowing the way Trump is saying it is. Oh, we're bringing it back to Texas and refining it and all. Some of it has come back, sure, but not very much of it. It's not enough to save the U.S. economy. Look, us Canadians, okay, we don't have enough oil to save the world. We can't. And look, Saudi Arabia, okay, supplies 20% or something like that, or 50% of the world's oil. The Middle East supplies almost half the world with energy. You got European Union out there asking the Ukrainians to allow Russian oil to flow from Russia uh, to Europe, right? Because they're going to be in crisis. Now the Europeans, they at least they don't have to worry about desalination and stuff like that. But again, they have to rely on gas and oil. Like there's not enough Canadian oil that could be shipped to the Europeans, and it won't be cheap. We're going to gain from that because people like some European countries are going to say, well, we'd rather get the oil from Norway and Canada, even if it's a little more expensive than the Middle East, because at least it's stable for now. But once you start bringing in all those migrants, guess what's going to happen to your oil plants? Well, again, the UK starts flying air sorties over Iran. Guess what's going to happen to the UK? Well, you're going to get fucking rocketed by the Iranians. I don't think they have a lot of rockets that can reach the UK, but they can reach the UK. And if I bet you the Iranians, well, you can tell by what they're striking that they don't want to kill Muslims, as much, right? Like, but you take like white Christians, Christian countries, yeah, they'll fucking level us. They'll nuke us because they hate us. And I'm not saying not rightfully so. We've attacked them, right? But what I'm saying is that like I don't want them here either. But let's make a deal. You stay out of, you guys stay out of Canada. You stay in the United States, Europe, whatever. We'll stay out of the Middle East. You guys do whatever you want to each other in the Middle East. Just leave them be. Maybe in 100 years we could hate each other in peace or do trade. We could do that. The rest of the Gulf states could say, like, if they want to save their asses, they gotta ditch the United States. What is the United States going to do? What, invade? Kuwait, invade Saudi Arabia and Jordan and UAE? Like, they've hit Jordan the other night. I mean, they hit everybody in the region out to Cyprus. They can hit Italy if they want. They can hit France if they want. They can hit as far as, with what we know, they can hit as far as the Netherlands. So that's all of Europe, basically. The UK, they might have saving grace for a few months. And then after that, like I say, once they start dominating the region, trust me, those rockets are going to become intercontinental. That's their next phase. They have no choice. Why? Because it's either that or the Americans are going to, start firing, Minuteman missiles at them, nuke them. And again, as soon as you start nuking Iran, like the countries around, you could trigger Pakistan firing nukes at either the UK or, in retaliation, or nuke Israel, or they can nuke, Pakistan and India might nuke each other. I'm more worried about that than anything. But they might nuke the United States. I do believe that they do have the range to do that, or at least hit European countries. And they might do that in retaliation for nuking Iran. Why? Because you nuke Iran, you might as well nuke Pakistan because they're neighbors. Like dropping nukes when Israel drops nukes, even at limited nukes in Iran, okay, that takes us to a global level of the mad scenario. And the problem with that is that it gets every country with nukes will launch on everybody. It could destroy the world overnight. For these evil, evil, evil fucking people. Like every politician in the world right now is fucking evil. They're almost all 100% for this, right? Even though the ones that are like posturing for political gain, yeah, like when the Democrats are in, they will do this stuff. Trump took it to a stupid level, that's all. But they were working their way there anyway. Like again, what do you think the whole Ukraine thing is going to trigger out, right? So every politician in the world has failed its people around the world by none. There's no good guys anywhere. I've been saying this for a long time. But what else I've been saying is that since 2009, the death of Muammar Gaddafi, especially with what's going on now, is the future of the world elites. I'm not making any threats. I'm just saying this is like, again, when you hit those desalination plants and all those people in the Middle East now can't get water and their children are dying of thirst, what happens to the royal families there? Do you really think they're going to be allowed to sit in their, hoarding water and, generated powered ACs, in their palaces? I don't know. You're going to see like the French Revolution 2.0. The Saudi royals are about to be headed in their own country, right? Which will then completely destabilize the region because then it'll be just rebel groups fighting each other, which is what Israel wants anyway. Because they want to destabilize everybody, right? Because then the way they look at it is, and again, their own words, is that if all these like third, backwards jihadi groups are running everything, none of them are strong enough to rise up against Israel and take them out. That's their strategy. That's why they want the Sunni-Shia war. The Iranians are not dumb. They know this. Most of them in the Middle East know this, right? They're more likely to turn on Israel, right? And that will be their saving grace. It's like, okay, well, the Americans can bomb us for telling them to leave our country, but that's not going to go over well at home because, again, the Trump administration, the Biden administration stuff, you have to understand, like, that's all going to come to an end because people have had enough. They're sick of the left, they're sick of the right, and they're sick of evil, right? Like our judges that won't prosecute and like CIA, CSIS, whatever, they don't prosecute the pedophile rings, right? They'd rather execute a war that nobody wants. Again, people are going to revolt. You're going to get a pitchfork revolution. It's happened time and time again. And the thing is that this bureaucracy that is unaccountable, this Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, globalist bureaucracy that's so unaccountable doesn't mean that people won't point fingers. They're going to know. So what happened to Muammar Gaddafi is what's about to happen to people when the hellhounds come out. Again, I'm not calling for it, but again, you piss off the people enough. Like, people don't want higher gas prices right now. They don't want higher, egg prices right now. They don't want inflation. They don't want to support Israel. They don't want all this stuff. And they definitely don't want a fucking holy war, right? So, yeah. So anyway, that's what's going on for day 8. We'll see what day 9 holds. I'm sure it's going to be worse. The amount of pain and suffering that has been caused out of this. And again, you still have your cheerleaders, these brainwashed people that, oh, we're winning. Oh, look at this. The Iranians are scared now. About that, let's say properly. Yeah, no, the Iranians are fucking hitting back with full fury. Like, as soon as you see a let up on the rockets, that's not a good thing. That means they're retargeting. That means they're looking for other things. They're not going to run out. And the slower they fire the rockets, that's a bad thing because that means they're firing minimal rockets because they're only firing at the targets that they need to hit. They don't have to worry about the interception rate anymore. Why? Because the Iron Dome's pretty much depleted. The THAAD systems, 3 of them are gone. There's a Patriot missile system gone. 1 or 2 of those gone. There's nothing to stop these rockets, right? So Israel's not going to get the early warnings, which is more likely that their air defense systems are going to be down. The THAAD system, they haven't taken it out yet, but I think that's probably the next one to go. And once the THAAD system goes, like, there's Iron Dome is pretty much useless at this point. And, again, there's only, like, Patriot missile systems. The Americans only have about 70 to 100 of those, right? And they're fairly quick to set up, if you're in the region with the stuff. But like to fly, it takes 90 people to run those systems. There's multiple vehicles, and it takes a while to set those, like a week to set those things up. You'll be taken out while they're being set up. And again, you're going to kill 90 people every time you set one of these up and lose the asset. What does that tell you about when things go nuclear? Do you really think the Vandenberg Air Force Base is really going to be able to shoot down all the ICBMs coming in? No. You know what I mean? This stuff does not work as good as advertised, even if it's the best in the world. I'm not saying it doesn't work at all. What I'm saying is when you get a country that is like mid-tier technology, you can't stop a game. You're basically fighting World War II style Scud launchers, and you can't stop it. It's just they're like like extreme speeds. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we'll see what's. Look, the Israelis are going to lose the war against the Lebanese. The Lebanese are going to take territory because the Iranians or the Israelis, like, they're fighting like an 8-front war of their own choosing, right? The Palestinians are going to go on the offensive as soon as the West Bank kind of overtakes, because again, the Apache gunship helicopters, they're going to get shot down by shoulder-fired weapons. The Merkava tanks are going to be taken. They're being, again, the Lebanese are fighting a defensive war. The Israelis can't go on the offensive. They can't. They tried it in 2006. They got their asses kicked, and they're going to be pushed back by artillery. They're going to be pushed back by Iranian rockets. They're going to be pushed back. So Israel is going to get pushed into the sea. They've already killed themselves. They're dead. They just don't know it yet. Yeah, no, that's going to be the kingdom of Iran. The Americans have already lost the war. The nuclear option is not going to make them win either. Like yes, you can irradiate the area, but like I say, they're going to survive it. The Iranians, they haven't, and a lot of people say, oh, they're God scorched earth. They haven't. That's the whole thing. They're still showing restraint. You can tell they're showing restraint. Because if they were scorched earth, it would be barrages of 1,000 rockets at a time, and they'd be out in a week. No, when they said they could fight for months with what they have, they were planning on the volleys that they were sending out on day 1, day 2, and day 3. Now it's just like, okay, well, we're not going to waste rockets on firing targets we already hit. That's what they did in the 12-day war. They just kept hitting the Air Force base and whatever. And okay, well, we hit it last night, but we'll hit it again. Why? Because strike one. They told Trump, you killed Soleimani, the number one guy fighting ISIS. Israel didn't like that. The Americans didn't like that because it was basically, again, to overthrow Assad, right? So again, well documented. It's not conspiracy theory. It's conspiracy fact that ISIS was armed by the United States and Israel. It's openly admitted. They called them moderate rebels. But when you looked at who the moderate rebel was, every one of these leaders was Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra Front, ISIS. That's what they were. That's who the Free Syrian Army mostly was. Well documented. Al-Baghdadi, like they killed that guy like 8 times. The guy running Syria right now, like one of the main ISIS leaders for for years and years and years and years. Now he's got all these blessings, right? But that said, no, it's the Iranians. That was, look, you hit us, we're going to hit your base back with a limited strike, 2 American bases, 11 rockets each, and they did. And I think maybe 2 rockets went astray out of that batch. And they gave the Americans like a week's warning before the barrage. They let the Iraqis know. The Iraqis informed the Americans. Everybody was, hiding in the bunkers. And right there, the Americans learned that every building above ground was pretty much fucking vaporized by these rockets. And the cheerleaders thought, oh, look, the Iranians can barely hit anything. Look, there's only like a rocket hole in the middle of the runway and stuff like that. And these 2 rockets fell short. Yeah, but the other 10 hit a building each. Like all the buildings were fucking flat. Pinpoint accuracy. Close enough is good enough, right? Strike 2, 12-day war. Okay, you want a 12-day war? Okay, Iran, Israel's on the offensive. They're on the offensive. Okay, wait a minute. We're running out of Iron Dome. We depleted most of the Iron Dome in 12 days. Okay, ceasefire. We'll go back to peace talks. Okay, and again, the Iranians gave the Israelis 2 months to prepare. Before this, they said, okay, yeah, next week we're going to hit you. This week or next week. Again, well documented, right? Everybody, you had the French Rafales shooting down these drones, chasing them down through over Syria and stuff like that, and Eurofighter Typhoons, and everybody shooting down all these, lob ball slow rockets. Okay, well, number 3, Trump starts the war on behalf of Israel. They can't get their story straight of why. Look, they couldn't get the Maduro raid straight. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, we're doing it because of the Venezuelan people. Oh, we're doing it because of the oil. Oh, we're doing it because... Like, Trump doesn't... Like, he's a psychopath, so he doesn't realize when he blurts stuff out whether it's socially acceptable to say that we're stealing the oil or not, right? It's because of the fentanyl. Well, the fentanyl is coming from China, not Venezuela. Heroin's coming from probably Venezuela, but not, you know what I mean? So it's a war on drugs. It's for the oil. It's for, the oil's coming for us. Okay, no, it's going to Israel. They can't get the war straight. This war, it's because of what Iran did 47 years ago. They're the number 1 arbiters of terrorists. Iranian aggression. They weren't attacking, but apparently that's Iranian aggression. No, it's for regime change. It's not for regime change. It's for... Like, what I mean? It's a holy war. It's not a holy war. It's like, okay, well, what is it? It's Israel said so. Yeah, again, you ask anybody in the Trump administration, you're going to get a different answer from all of them. You know, like it's just like, uh, you can't even make it up. And now Trump, but the difference was strike three, you're out. You hit us, we hit you 15 minutes after, 45 minutes after you hit us. And again, the Iranians said, "Don't do it. We're gonna hit everything." They told you. They told you exactly what they're going to do. And now you're like, "Oh my God, the Iranian aggression, this horrible regime. They're so violent." Well, you killed their kids. You killed their leadership. You know what I mean. You thought decapitation strike on their leadership was going to lead to regime change. It didn't. You know why? Because they don't function in that faction. You kill their leader, they get another leader. Like they're like the next Ayatollah is going to be voted on next week or the week after. You kill their generals, they've got new generals. You know, they're not a centralized system that they're using. They know that if chain of command breaks down, people are going to be on their own. Say, okay, you control that region, you control that region, you control that region. So at this point, it's just like it becomes a hydra. It doesn't matter if you take out the next guy, because the next guy after him is going to be probably twice as fucking radical and say, you know what, okay, we hit them this hard, let's hit them a little harder because like they're not getting it. You know what I mean? The Gulf states, look, there's reports of like, you know, Gulf state leaders on the back channels with the Iranians saying, can you please stop? You know, like, well, get them out of your country. You know, you got an hour to tell them to leave, or else we're going to just keep, you know, like you're in on it until they're gone, right? And again, I don't know which Gulf state's going to crack first, but I think the one that runs out of the water first will be the first one to crack, because that's where the first regime change is going to take place due to, well, again, Arab Spring 2.0, right? Like people are asking their leaders, hey, my quality of life just fucking degraded big time. Why? For Israel? Like again, like why would anybody in the Gulf states want to die for? Sure, I'm sure they all hate Iran. It's the Middle East. They all hate each other. I get that. But do they want to die? Do they want their kids to die for Israel? No. Yeah, we're going to take these rocket hits on behalf of Israel. No, they're not going to put up with it. Like they're going to. That's why the embassies are being attacked right now. Look, all these soldiers that are stuck in the Middle East, which is probably about 40, 50,000 people, maybe more, maybe even 70,000. I don't know what the exact number is, that are no longer on safe, guarded military bases and are now out in public motels and hotels. Like these guys are being encircled by rebel groups. There are protests at first. Some of them are getting shot at. Like again, how many RPG-7s does it take to take out a motel? You know what I mean? Do you really think the Saudi armed forces and you know, military and security forces can really stop an armed uprising against they can't. They can't. None of them can, right? They'll be killed. They'll lose their forces in the conflict. So at that point, it's like, do we lose our guys or do we let them kill the Americans? Again, your loved one is stuck there because of Israel. You know what I mean? Is what it is. But yeah, these THAAD radar systems going down, they can't be replaced anytime soon. Major, you know, like again, that greatly degrades the capabilities. So guys, once they get all the radar systems down, then it's up to aircraft, satellites, and warships. And at that point, you're not going to be able to keep the warships out 1,000 kilometers or 600 miles out off the shores. I'm almost guaranteed right now the Iranians are finding ways to hide amongst commercial shipping to encircle the U.S. Navy. They're going to sink these boats. You'd say, yeah, but then every American's going to rally around the flag. No. Americans they're not rallying around the flag with the air bases. They're not rallying around the flag with the pilots being shot down. They're not rallying around the flag. You know, if anything, most Americans are appalled at seeing these schoolgirls getting killed. And it's now confirmed that it was either Israel or the United States that bombed it, right? And no matter what, the United States is going to take the blame no matter what, because it doesn't. An Israeli bomb comes from America, so you know what I mean. Yeah, it's going to be bad. It's going to get really bad. So economically, it's going to be bad for everybody. So you better be preparing wisely, stocking up food. You need 2 years worth of food minimum for everybody, you and your family. Whatever's on the shelf is on sale, because look, you're about to see a bunch of people in the Middle East find out what the word unobtainium means. You can't get it regardless. You could be a wealthy Gulf prince with gold bars in your pocket, but when the desalination plant is out, you still can't drink water. The only people that can survive the Middle East is Tuaregs. That's it. They'll get some camels to puke up some water for them. That's it. It's about to get so, like, it's a nightmare. Like, once you realize what has actually happened, it's like, okay, they took out the desalination plant in Iran during a massive drought and water crisis there. The rest of the Gulf states, again, need all that food to come in from foreigners, from foreign lands. That food has to come from Europe. It has to come from Canada, the United States, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, or these people starve to death. How much food do they have there? Like, this, of course, all the Gulf states are saying, "Oh, don't worry, we have lots of food, lots of food." They don't. They're saying that so they can buy time so they can go run and hide when the riots start. It's going to be food riots. I think most people are going to die from dehydration before they're going to die of starvation. But you have a 1-2 punch there. And then, of course, a lot of these Gulf states also feed African countries. We're talking about a starvation radius of all of this and half of that. That's 500 million people probably. And they're all going to go here, here, and here. Yeah. Bullets, bread, and bandages, people. Bullets, bread, and bandages. Yeah. And again, when they land on our shores, we can't feed them here either. We don't have enough food. You know what I mean? They'll be fine for water, but they're not going to have enough food. Right? Yeah, we're about to see, like I said, what I said back in 2020. You're going to see 2 to 4 billion people starve to death. I got to revise that to 4 to 6 billion people about to starve to death. And all because of one little country and one massive country that is completely controlled by this little country. That's where we're at. So we'll see what day 9 holds. Stay safe. Good luck. For all those troops that are going to go over to the Middle East, 85th Airborne, if you think, you're going there and you're going to get glory and all that, maybe you should, now's the time to stand down. Do the right thing. Look, we've only ever had, when the Eastern Bloc stood down when the Berlin Wall fell. Now, some people think, such as myself, that it might have been done on purpose, saying, no, do the stand down so we can get communism around the world. But it probably was a legitimate stand down. So when they were ordered to open fire on the people destroying the Berlin Wall, they didn't. Maybe we need to learn from that. Maybe you guys in the 81st need to say, you know what? When they say move out, you just stand there. All of you, unified. Because if one, again, it's the penguin effect. You either stand together, you're going to hang anyway. You might as well hang together and do the right thing and stand up for humanity, not the world elites, not Israel. You're not brave. You're not heroic. You're going to kill innocent people because Israel said so, because of their crazy fucking religions and stuff like that. That's what they've got you doing. You're not going there for democracy, women and children and peace. You've already bombed a school and God knows how many other innocent civilians in Iran. But they're just shooting rockets at everybody. We have to stop them. Well, they'll stop when you stop. That's what they've said. That's what they've always done. As soon as you stop, they stop. Who's the bad guy? Do some soul searching. All right, there we go. Have yourselves a great day.